January 18th, 2018, regular meeting order at this time. Mr. Clerk, we have a roll call.
Dominic, Johnson, Jackson, Lynn,
Present.
Bowman, Cawthorn, Gates,
Present.
Watts, Middleton, Atkins,
Here.
Chavez,
Here,
Smith,
sir.
Lewis Johnson.
Present.
We have a quorum, sir.
We all can stand. I'll ask Commissioner Bowman if you'll do the invocation, and Commissioner Chavez to do the pledge of allegiance, please. We can all stand.
Everyone, please bow your heads. Oh, gracious Lord, thank you for this opportunity, God. We just thank you for this day. Lord, we ask and thank you for forgiveness of sins, Lord. Right now, I ask that you just guide each and every one of us, Lord. Help us to be always productive and progressive for the citizens of this parish, Lord. And God, bless everyone here, everyone in this city, this state, and this great United States, Lord. Bless our president. Lord, also bless the people who are fighting for us and protecting us here and abroad, Father God. And God, also bless those here locally who may be homeless. And Lord, show favor and grace and mercy upon them as well, as you have also shown us favor, grace, and mercy, God. It's in these and other blessings we entrust in your Son, in Jesus' name, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Whenever ready to face our glorious flag, render the proper salute. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Everybody can have a seat. We will try to move on in our agenda, and we will turn it back over to our clerk.
Next, we have agenda additions. I have nothing, sir.
We have no agenda additions. We're moving to citizens' comments. Any citizens who wish to address the commission on any issue other than zoning, please fill out a comment card located in the chamber foyer and forward it to myself or the clerk of the Caddo Parish Commission. Individual comments are limited to 3 minutes. I don't have any cards. Did you place any up here, Todd?
No, sir. I have none also.
Okay.
All right.
All right, we'll go ahead and go to the visitors.
Next, we move to visitors. We have the Women's March Shreveport-Bossier 2018 here to speak today.
Okay. If the Women's March, Shreveport-Bossier, y'all can come up, sir. Come up. If y'all can give us your name and go ahead.
Thank you for inviting us here today. We just came to inform you that there is a Women's March happening on January 20th, 2018. That's this Saturday. It starts at 11 a.m. at the Caddo Parish Courthouse. The Women's March it started last year in 2017, and it's a march for rights for all humans. We're marching for civil rights, we're marching for women's rights, we're marching for environmental justice, and also for workers' rights and immigration rights. So it's a coming together of the community. We understand that in order to make this place a better place for everyone, that we have to start by looking at ourselves and seeing what we can do to make the community better. So we'd like to invite all of you to come to join us, right? I would also like to take the time to thank all of you for serving as commissioners, because you're doing your civic duty. It takes a lot of hard work to do what you're doing. And it takes a lot of perseverance, and I know that you get a lot of pushback from the community, but we do support you, and we thank you for all the work that you have done so far to make this a better place. We know that we have work to do. First of all, we have to get started by doing community service in our communities, coming together and looking at what we can do for the community. We also have to practice our civic duty of voting. So that's one of the goals of the Women's March this year, is to get more people out to vote, to inform them of what's going on in their community, what civic organizations are out there to make the community a better place. So again, we invite you to come march with us to talk about how we can work together as a community to make Shreveport-Bossier a better place for everyone.
Can you please, I'm sorry, can you give us your name again?
My name is Amy Vu. I live at 624 Texas Street. Thank you.
Hey, I got a couple commissioners that would like to ask you some questions.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Jackson?
Oh, I don't know if they were finished speaking. I'm just on whenever anybody
Okay.
else wanted to speak. Okay. Well, I just wanted to say thank you guys for coming down. I had a chance to visit with Amy, and I know recognize a lot of the faces that are here, and I think this is good, especially in the age that we're living in, especially with the Me Too movement getting up and going. But I think the Women's March and the organizers, they're trying to get beyond just, advocating for women's rights. And I know Commissioner Gates Watts, in her absence, being the only female here, I even find myself when we are crafting legislation, I don't know if folks have caught it, but a lot of our language says, for instance, I give an example, it says the president shall designate his, I always put like a / his or her, because I'm conscious of the gender bias that we have organically within policy, and that predates all of us. And so it's just something that we have to be socially and mindful of, that we do have women that are stepping up into these roles, and we always want to be conscious of ensuring and making sure that you not only have a voice but a seat at the table. And I'm looking forward to joining you at the march this Saturday. I think you guys are going to have some booths set up for folks to get information.
Yes, we have several nonprofits and different advocacy groups in the city that will have information tables there for anyone who would like to get plugged in to the community in ways to help.
Okay. And if if there are issues that you think the commission needs to be looking at or can address with regard to policy dealing with women locally, feel free to bring those things to our attention. Again, I think the goal is for you guys to just get beyond the whole advocacy piece and actually get down to some actual practical policies that make all of us more inclusive parish to be in. So thank you for your work, and look forward to joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. Hang on one second.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Bowman?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to tell you all, I'm so proud of you all, what you're doing, and the location on the 20th is here at the courthouse?
It's at the, Caddo Parish Courthouse.
Okay. And the other note is, Miss Amy Vu, I am so very proud of you. We met maybe 7 months ago.
Four
The
and a
Bill
half,
Berry
yes, sir.
Park at a Caddo Parish sponsored event where we did for the community. Mr. Jackson was out there as well, Brother Honoré. And we had a long conversation, and you talked about how you were going to get involved, and everything that we talked about and everything that you wanted to do is coming to fruition. And I'm so proud of you that you've gotten involved, and because this is something that you genuinely, it's a part of you, and it's not staged. And so we need more people like you, and I'm just glad that you continue to stay involved, and all of you together help makes everything better. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. We feel the same way about it.
Yes.
Commissioner Cawthorn?
Yeah, I just have one question for you. Can we get in writing that statement that you made, you support us?
Yeah, I think you have it on video.
Broadcast live.
All kidding aside, I want to applaud you guys for your efforts and what it is that you guys are seeking to do here in the city and in the parish. I think it is always commendable when our citizens step up to engage themselves in activities that need to happen in this locale, and to be a voice to resonate for that. And I just want to applaud you guys for doing that. We need a lot more of it, but it's always good to see the genesis of it, and it happened right down here at the Caddo Parish Commission. I just want to applaud you guys and tell you guys thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson, you back on?
Yes, and I just wanted to ask, when we put the deal in place, when we were discussing some of the parameters for the courthouse use, I know y'all organized with that. Was that time consuming, or was it friendly enough? I mean, did y'all feel burdened by that? I mean, just getting some QA here, that's all.
Trying to set some metrics here.
No, sir. As it was noted before, we've had several events throughout the community centered around the courthouse, and it's been a great relationship with the Director of Facilities and Maintenance.
And they get back to you pretty fast.
Any questions that they have, we've been more than happy to answer. It's been a pretty expedient process. We applied for it probably about 3 months ago. And we got a quick response within probably 2.5 weeks.
So it's pretty reasonable.
Very much so.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin, for doing what you do. I know that there was some discussion about the possibility of suppressing free speech by us putting those regulations in. And thank y'all for abiding by those rules. I think they're fairly reasonable, and it's great to hear some feedback on it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
And gals. All right, next we move to special resolutions. We have special resolution of recognition to Principal Annie Cherry, North Caddo Magnet High 2017-2018 Principal of the Year.
All right. Y'all all rise. Ms. Cherry, you can come up. Right. I told her that we were having something nice for her, for North Caddo, so she didn't realize she's the one that's actually being honored. And she also brought the Teacher of the Year, Ms. Shine, here for Caddo Parish. So we have a resolution, and I'm going to let our clerk read it to you at this time for everybody.
By the name and authority of the Caddo Parish Commission, resolution of recognition to North Caddo Magnet High School Principal Annie Cherry, 2017-2018 Principal of the Year. Whereas the Caddo Parish Commission desires to acknowledge and commend individuals whose lives and efforts are devoted to the youth of Caddo Parish and who strive to make a difference in the community by making a difference in the lives of the young people who come into their charge. And whereas such an individual as Miss Annie Cherry, Principal of North Caddo Magnet in Vivian, who in her 23 years as an English and journalism teacher and principal has served as an exceptional role model for the thousands of students who have passed through the classrooms and schools under her leadership. And whereas Ms. Cherry, since taking the reins of North Caddo Magnet, has pushed her students to dream big, work hard, and achieve greatness. In doing so, the school has moved from a C rating to an A rating school.
Right.
And whereas Ms. Cherry effectively combines the demeanor of an authoritarian figure who means business with that of a concerned and caring mentor and friend. Both roles are clearly distinguishable by the students placed in her care. Now therefore be it resolved by the Caddo Parish Commission, meeting in legal and regular session this 18th day of January 2018, that it does hereby extend its heartiest expressions of commendation and appreciation to Principal Annie Cherry for her untiring efforts in North Caddo Magnet High School's behalf, and for the worthy example she sets for her students to emulate, and wishing for her much continued success in the future. Signed, Doug Dominic, President, Lynn Cawthorn, Vice President.
So nice. Thank you. Not quite an A yet. We're 4/10 of a point to an A.
That's all right. We'll let you. We'll let you go.
Oh.
You want to talk?
I can. I have to admit something, though. Thank y'all so much. This is wonderful. We are not quite an A. We are 4/10 of a point from an A. The state does,
and claim.
you know, we round up too, and the kids they're like, isn't that an A minus? I said, well, yes, in our book it is, but the state doesn't recognize that just yet. But next year we can come back and claim that A. But we're almost there, and thank you so much for this. And it wouldn't be done without teachers like Ms. Shine, who is the Caddo Parish Teacher of the Year. So to have the Principal of the Year and the Caddo Parish Teacher of the Year. And I have to say that our Student of the Year is a finalist in the running for Student of the Year. So North Caddo is a great place, and great students, and come visit us. I know we're an hour away, but it's a great place. So thank you so much for this honor. Thank you, Mr. Dominic.
You want all three of us? Just do us.
Don't break the camera now. Photo bottle, John.
Here you go.
Okay.
Hold on 1 second. The only thing I'd like to say is thank you, Ms. Cherry and Ms. Shine. Is it Greg? Is your dad? And John, we know Greg from the clerk's office. So appreciate all the hard work and continue with the success at North Caddo, and I look forward to the improvements next year, okay? Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank y'all.
I'll make a motion that this resolution be accepted by acclamation. If I can have a second. Seconded by Commissioner Middleton. And Mr. Clark, the next item.
Okay, next we go to special resolution of recognition to A.J. Haynes, Music Louisiana of the Year by the Louisiana Life magazine.
All right.
Okay, if we can all rise, we'll have the resolution read by Commissioner Jackson. You read this, or Todd's reading? Okay.
In the name and by the authority of the Caddo Parish Commission, proclamation and special recognition to Ms. A.J. Haynes. Whereas Caddo Parish Commission notes with interest and satisfaction the significant events that occur in the lives of citizens who have made significant and lasting contributions to Caddo Parish and to the larger community. And whereas Ms. Haynes, along with bandmates Connor Davis, Adam Davis, Jesse Gabriel, formed the Serotones, whose style has elements of punk, rock, gospel, and jazz. And whereas the Serotones got their big break following an event in 2014, the lead singer of Nerves put the Serotones in touch with the president of Fat Possum Records. Shortly after, the Serotones had their first record deal with Get It Gone. And whereas Ms. Haynes is an advocate for socio-economic justice and equality and utilizes music, art, poetry as a platform to raise awareness to the plight of many issues. And whereas such an individual as Ms. A.J. Haynes, lead singer of the Serotones, who was named one of 2017 Louisiana's of the Year by Life magazine. Now therefore be it resolved by the Caddo Parish Commission in legal and regular session this 18th day of January 2018 that it does hereby extend its most sincere and heartfelt expression of congratulation and appreciation to Ms. A.J. Haynes for her praiseworthy achievements and for representing Caddo Parish so elegantly and admirably to the nation. Be it further resolved that the Commission does pray that Ms. Haynes may continue to enjoy the love of her labors and respect of her peers through her positive influence with music and performance. Signed, Doug Dominic, President, Lynn Cawthorn, Vice President, Stephen Jackson, District 3.
Seat down.
I'm short up here. This is such a huge honor. I'm just kind of reeling from it. I'm just a citizen. And at the end of the day, every citizen has a voice. I've just been very lucky to have been a little louder and to be in a city where I can see change happen in such a palpable and real way. So I just wanted to thank you for all of your work, and this is great. Thank you.
Hang on, ma'am, Ms. Haynes, hang on. Got a couple of commissioners that wanted to, Commissioner Bowman's on the board, he wants to.
I just want to thank you and thank you for representing Shreveport and just this area nationally, and it's from the heart, and what you're doing is different and unique. So people of all genres, economic backgrounds, everybody should be able to get in and feel the vibe of what's going on and how you're really going to torpedo up like Haley's Comet with your attitude and with your belief in God and how you move forward. It's just your presence it's even good. So just want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And this is a sidebar. I know it's out of order. I also did want to tell the principal you did great, and thank you as well, because people don't understand, as a principal and Ms. Shine as a teacher, that's a ministry as well. And so they can never pay you enough for what you're doing, and you're going to get blessed with more money than you can have because of what you're doing. So keep going. Thank you.
Gerald, are you saying that because you're a teacher, you don't get paid enough? Okay.
I'm saying because it's true.
Commissioner Lynn.
Ms. Haynes, thank you so much for representing our community the way that you did. Thank you for representing the crew of Highland year before last, with you and the Serotones being the Grand Marshal, and hopefully we're still down the street neighbors from each other. I haven't seen
Not
you in
too
a while.
far.
We are awesome, so thanks for representing the block. I appreciate that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Jackson?
Before I get to Ms. A.J. Haynes, I want to kind of piggyback on what Commissioner Bowman was saying. I was in the board, but we missed it. To the teacher and the principal, I believe it's in the African countries, they call teachers nation builders. And so, my thought is that if we paid you, obviously paid you the same, and gave as much respect to our teachers and our education system as we do some other things in the state of Louisiana, I think we would we'd see some trends go in a different direction. But I want to applaud you, the principal and the teacher, for staying the course and doing the work. I come from a family of educators, so I understand the work that you do. And it's not easy in this day and age when you have to deal with bips, flips, tips, and all those other forms that you have to do just before you can even sit down and educate. So thank you for what you're doing, and we look forward to it. We know you'll be back here with that legitimate A next year. So thank you, Commissioner Dominic, for recognizing them as well. Ms. Haynes, appreciate you, all that you do. I think this resolution speaks for itself. Not only are you involved in the cultural aspect of Shreveport and Caddo Parish, but you're also a part of the social change that we see taking place here. You've used your voice as a tool to express the downtrodden, the disenfranchised, and the poor. And so thank you for all that you're doing. It's being recognized not only throughout Louisiana, but on a national scene. And so I'm inspired by what you're doing. And, again, let's continue to put all these pieces of the puzzles together to make our place a better place to be. And so thank you for it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes.
Ms. Haynes, before you
Hey,
leave,
hang on, more.
before you leave, stick around for the autograph session. I want to be the first one.
Don't charge us.
Thank you for coming. I just want to, Ms. Shine, I think your brother, is he a coach there? Is he the girls or? Okay, so you have a brother that's coaching the 3-time or 4-time state championship of the girls, so.
Wow.
They're number one.
Awesome.
Yeah, we brag about our girls, and our boys are doing real well too, so we won't forget about baseball in the near future, Miss Cherry. Thank y'all for coming.
Y'all don't play Woodlawn in basketball, do y'all?
Do what?
Y'all don't play Woodlawn in basketball, do you?
Tear them up.
I think we were ranked number one.
He started something.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, we'll move on to our next item.
We need to approve the last resolution.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Jackson
Yes.
to approve that resolution, seconded by Commissioner Lynn. That will be accepted by acclamation. And now we'll move on to our next
Next,
item.
we have to adopt the regular session minutes from January 4th.
So moved. Approved.
Have a motion by Commissioner Middleton, and seconded by Commissioner Matthew Lynn to adopt the regular session minutes of January 4th. Please vote. And that passes. Mr. Smith, you meant to vote yes?
Yes.
Okay, so it passes 10-0. Todd, if you can correct that, please. And now we'll move on to our next item.
Next, we move to public hearing on ordinances. Ordinance number 5751, amending Article 3 of Chapter 19 of the Code of Ordinances relative to Edward E. Jones Housing Trust
Edward
Fund
Jones.
to establish a fund and provide for application and consideration for grants thereunder.
Okay, now declare this public hearing open for ordinance number 5751. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in favor of ordinance number 5751? Is there anybody who wishes to speak against ordinance number 5751? Okay, see no one. Moving on to the next item.
We'll close
Okay, I'll
public hearing.
declare
Move to
the
ordinance for
ordinance
final
closed, yeah.
passage.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr.
Ordinance.
President,
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone ordinance 5751, 2018.
I have a motion by Commissioner Stephen Jackson to postpone ordinance number 5751. A second was made by Commissioner Matthew Lynn. I see no discussion. If we can please vote, this will be postponed.
Yes. Will we still have to do a public hearing, another public hearing?
Yes,
Okay.
and so
That's what I want.
I would ask, do you have a date?
The
set?
next agenda,
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
it'll go to the next agenda, which
Yes.
would be the February
Eighth.
8th, I believe.
But we will have another public hearing, right?
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
set another public hearing then.
Okay, thank you.
Except that we won't have 2-week notice of that. We may have to go back to the end of February. It has to be 2-week notice.
I'm fine.
So, yeah, well, then that would push us to, the 22nd.
That's correct. So it'll be the 22nd of February.
That's fine.
We'll give notice. It'll be the proper 2-week notice.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Hopkins, moving on to the next item.
Okay, next we move to ordinances for introduction by title. Ordinance number 5752 to authorize the lease of flood acquisition property located at 595 Tier Road, Shreveport, Caddo Parish. Next we move to ratify the work session minutes of January 17th.
Move to ratify.
Have a motion by Commissioner Matthew Lynn to ratify the work session minutes of January 17, 2018. That's been seconded by our Vice President, Commissioner Lynn Cawthorn. Please vote. And that passes also. 10-0. Next item, Mr. Hopkins.
Move to resolutions. Resolution number 9, proclaiming January as Human Trafficking Awareness Month.
So moved.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Chavez, seconded by Commissioner Bowman, to approve resolution number 9, proclaiming January as Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention Month. No one's on the board. If we can please vote. We'll just make it known for the record that this was put on the agenda by Commissioner Stormy Gage Watson. She's at the Police Jury Association, couldn't be here today, so. Moving on to our next item, Mr.
No old
Hopkins.
business, we move to new business. Authorize engagement for the 2017 financial audit.
Okay, that's moved by the chair.
Second.
Have us seconded by Commissioner Jackson to authorize engagement of the 2017 audit. The recommendation by the administrator is to engage Carl Riggs and Ingram for the 2000 financial audit. I see no one on the board. Commissioner Lynn?
I find it absurd that an auditor would be recommended in a scenario where you're choosing the auditor of yourself. And I would vote no, just because I don't think that they should be even recommended.
Okay. Commissioner, you got anything else?
I mean, I don't think it's proper. I don't think it's proper for you for an entity to recommend who audits them. I would think that would be an automatic disqualifier. That's it.
I will note that this came out of Personnel Policy and Procedures Committee, so that is actually being recommended by the committee, if I remember
It
correctly.
says, I was at that meeting, and I do not remember a certain entity chosen by that group to audit, and this says recommendation by administration.
If you'll
It
see,
doesn't say the
that was,
committee.
okay.
For administration.
Commissioner Atkins, you're on the board?
Go ahead. I still have the floor, but anyway, I surrender it.
Okay.
It's okay,
Commissioner-
y'all yield to Dr. Wilson.
Dr. Wilson, you want to answer some of these questions, please, sir?
Reserve.
Yes, sir. When we were,
Hang on one second.
when we were discussing this matter, this was the cleanup of the fact that we had already engaged this company to do the previous audit, which was on a 3-year contract. Is that correct, Eric? And then you all in agreement that we would go through this process, and you will validate that in your meetings. So this is not the internal audit, this is the financial audit, not of the processes, which is different. This is strictly the finance we've been doing for many years, and you all had agreed to that this would be proper in order. That's why it's before you again. We had discussed this in the committee, and you all did agree to that we would come in to clean it up, to make sure we in sync of what you had agreed to. Am I missing anything?
Erica, can you go ahead? I'll give
Yes,
the floor.
Commissioners, this is just your annual financial audit. What the Personnel Committee recommending is to go ahead and engage Carl Riggs and Ingram for only 2017 and look at issuing an RFP for years beyond that. This is not to audit the administration. or the departments. This is purely to audit your year-end 2017 financial numbers that you have to report to the legislative auditor's office.
Wasn't there a deadline on that by December
There is,
31st, and we had to do that for the personnel, the policy and procedures?
Right.
That is the reason we meant to do that in
Right.
December?
Right, you have to submit your engagement letter to the legislative auditors because they then have to have final approval.
Now, if we didn't approve that by December 31st, we would have gotten written up by the legislative auditor for not having the application in, is that correct?
Right, well, they've already contacted us asking for the engagement letter. You have to submit the engagement letter because you have to have your audit issued by June 30, 2018. But again, this is just for financial statement numbers, and then we would look at issuing an RFP for beyond 2017.
So this was for the 2017.
These are for 2017 year-end financial statement amounts.
Okay.
You have to
Something
have
that's
an auditor
annual.
come in and certify that your numbers are
And we'd already done that, it was just housekeeping and cleaning up measure, correct?
Right, well, they would do that now. They would
Right.
come in, once you engage, they would come in 2018 to audit your 2017 number.
I understand. Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to point out, it's my experience in private practice that the standard practice is for the CFO to recommend an audit firm to perform the financial audit. They then present that to the board, who then approves or disapproves of the recommendation. This recommendation was discussed in the Personnel and Policies and Procedures meeting, and I came out of that meeting feeling that we had approved this candidate. So I respect Commissioner Lynn's diligence on this matter, but I feel like we're following proper protocol and procedure, and I think we should just move ahead with the recommendation. Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, just as a matter of clarification here, Mr. Clerk, I'm looking at the minutes of the, and let me just say, let me preface my comments with, I understand, I don't have a problem with this. I think this is as I noted yesterday, I made sure that we made clarification that this was our annual post audit that we do routinely. So I don't have a problem with it, but I'm looking at the minutes and I don't recall, and I don't see it in the minutes, but I see it.
The problem is I highlighted the wrong minutes. The minutes from December the 6th
Okay.
actually was moved by Mr. Dominic.
Okay.
Second by Ms. Gage Watts to recommend that the commission engage Carr, Riggs,
Okay.
Ingram for the 2017 financial audit.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
I hooked up the wrong one, I think.
Thank you. And so that's what I wanted to make sure we clarified there. So appreciate it. Thank you. That's it for me.
Commissioner Matthew Lynn.
We had a scenario with the IDB where they had voted on and agreed to sell or sign off on $200,000 for property that was non-movable in the former General Motors plant. And then they sent it to us after they had already agreed to this and cashed the check for us to ratify it. And so if we're going to move forward on issues of audits, I would think that this body would make this vote before December and before they're already contracted to do these type of things. And so for us to ratify this with a vote, it's already done. And so the vote seems pointless.
Well, you can vote no then.
Thank you.
We'll let you have every right to vote no.
Thank you.
Okay. No one else on the board, please vote. Okay, record reflect that's 9-1. Okay, moving on to our next item.
Next, we move to confirm the appointment, reappointment to the Metropolitan Planning Commission. We have two people on the board. We have Mr. Jeffrey Allen Young and Miss Felicia Hamilton.
Okay. All right, so what we'll do here is just make sure everybody's clear. We have two people on the board. The first person is Mr. Jeffrey Allen Young. In just a minute, we'll vote. So anybody who's in favor for Jeffrey Allen Young will vote yes. And then we'll come back, unless he gets the majority, then we'll come back and vote for Felicia Hamilton. So if you're for Felicia Hamilton, we'll vote in just a second. You'll remember this was the one that we had the tie vote last month.
Excuse me.
So I just want to make sure everybody is clear on the protocol on how this will happen. If you're for Mr. Jeffrey Allen Young, you will vote yes. If you're for Ms. Felicia Hamilton, you'll wait till her name's called. No one will vote no. You'll just be voting yes for the candidate that you like. That will be the protocol. I have a couple commissioners on the board to speak. I'm assuming you're speaking on behalf of the people or making a motion, so I would go to Commissioner Atkins.
Thank you, Mr. President. I assume there's no need to make a motion since they're here on the list.
I don't see there being a reason to make a motion that
I would just
we're
like
going to
to
follow the protocol that I just said. Is that correct, Mr. Hopkins?
Yeah, you just vote.
Then I'm just speaking in favor of Mr. Jeffrey Allen Young. He is an existing MPC member, so I do understand some members of the commission thinking some fresh blood on the commission, on the MPC would be good, and I respect that view. However, Jeffrey Allen Young is a very strong performer on the MPC. He's very well respected by the people that I've talked to who have actually used the MPC's services and procedures. So from what I've heard, Mr. Jeffrey Allen Young is highly regarded by the business and development community. Thank you.
And Commissioner Jackson?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to postpone the appointment of the MPC member to our next meeting.
Second.
Okay, I have a substitute motion to postpone these appointments. That motion has been made by Commissioner Jackson and seconded by Commissioner Bowman to postpone these appointments. Does anybody wish to speak?
I'll speak to that, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Atkins?
I think that's a reasonable request, Commissioner Jackson. I think that makes sense, given that we don't really have a fair representation of all parties involved.
That's my
and it would
reason
probably be the appropriate thing to do.
That's my reason.
Anybody else?
That's it.
The only thing I would say, Todd, is, I mean, is there any way in the future, it says Felicia Hamilton, that was put on by Commissioner Johnson, that was, I think, by Lyndon Johnson. Can
That's
we have
correct, yes.
two Johnsons? We just probably need to make sure for now, but Lyndon Johnson or Lewis Johnson, whoever makes that. Okay, so we have a motion to, substitute motion to postpone the vote. Can we please vote on the substitute motion at this time? Okay, that fails 5-5. So we'll be back to the original motion.
I understand.
So
It's all
at
political.
this point, if you're for Mr. Jeffrey Allen Young, please vote. If you're for Jeffrey Allen Young, please vote yes.
I'm not against it. I think he's great.
What happened? My vote should show up there as a yes. You flashed that screen pretty quick.
Okay, so Mr. Lynn, you are a yes,
I'm a yes.
so that's 6 yeses.
So that will give him the majority, correct?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay. There's no need to be a vote for Ms. Hamilton. We'll declare Mr. Jeffrey Allen Young as our representative at this time. And moving on to our next.
Confirm the reappointment to Sewers District Number 7, former Miss Joanne Witkowski.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
Mr. President, I'm sorry, I move that we include the appointment for Fire District Number 4.
Okay.
Second.
So I have a in globo motion by Commissioner Jackson, seconded by Commissioner Matthew Lynn, to reaffirm the appointment to Sewer District Number 7, along with the reappointment Fire District 4 board member. You don't need to speak anymore. Okay, please vote.
Thank you.
And that passes 10-0. Moving to our next item, Mr. Clerk.
Next, we move to communiques and committee reports.
All right, we're on communication committee reports. Please get on the board if you wish to speak at this time. I see first one is Commissioner Jackson.
Yes, Dr. Wilson and Attorney Frazier, if you all could, before the next meeting, I have some questions on ordinance 5752, the one dealing with the leasing of the FEMA properties. I would like to know, and I have a set of questions here for you. Will the terms and conditions be attached to the agenda of the lease? Will that be attached to the agenda before final approval? Is the lease set for a term or a period? Will the leasee or will the heirs have a right to quit claim after the term expires? Will the leasee or its heirs have a right to adverse possession after the term of the lease expires? Does the leasee have any business relationships with anyone on the parish commission or with the parish administration that may be viewed as a conflict of interest? Will the parish be liable for anything that takes place on the property to be leased? Will the leasee be required to obtain insurance? If so, what's the minimum and maximum coverage? Will the parish be listed as insured on the policy? Will the insurance be separate policy? Or will the leasee be required to use the same policy as their personal property? Is the leasee required to provide proof of the insurance? Has there been a contract approved to do the appraisal on the property? If so, what is the most recent appraised fair market value of the land? Is there someone who will check to ensure that the leasee is in compliance with the terms and conditions of the lease? If so, who will that be? And what will happen if the leasee defaults on its obligations within the lease? And if we could, I'll send you a copy of this to prepare. And I ask those things because it seems as if we sort of get in a hurry on issues down here. Some folks, I bring issues down and there are a million questions about some of the simplest things that I bring down here. But yesterday what I saw was we moved and introduced a piece of legislation and didn't ask one single question about it. And, you know, this notion that back last year when we were doing the appropriations, you know, there was this sort of insinuation that I had a conflict of interest, and none of these issues ever get asked by anybody else. So it sort of seems like I get singled out on issues, and I'm not saying anybody is doing anything wrong here. I'm not saying anybody has anything to cover up here. I just want to make sure that if the due diligence has to be done on my legislation, I think the due diligence should be done on all, and I think it's fair. I hope that the body would understand that this is about equity. It's about making sure that whatever issues that I bring forward, they're not being held hostage, and we bring other issues forward and we just approve them without any sense of questioning or any sense of accountability. I think that, you know, I know you're an outstanding person and you believe in equity as well, but I can't speak for the political aspect of this as well. So I think these questions are fair. I think they're legitimate. I think they maintain the integrity of the parish. I believe we're in a lawsuit right now where somebody was either reserved land or provided a piece of land, and there's some issues about where that's going to be. So I don't want you to think that I'm nitpicking here, but again, when I bring legislation, these things get vetted to the T, and so I'd like to see and make sure that we're consistent, and I think that that's fair that we're consistent on what we're doing. Thank you.
Will you email that to Dr. Wilson, those questions?
Provide them a list here,
All right.
and I'll provide a list to Todd, and Todd, if we can include this as a part of the
Dr. Wilson, if you can get with Donna and Public Works or whoever and try to get those questions answered to Commissioner Jackson, I would appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Next is Commissioner Matthew Lynn.
Yes, Dr. Wilson, in the last 2 weeks, I'm trying to think, can you think of how many different verbal conversations we have? I can think of 3 to 5 just in passing. And does that sound about right?
Probably the last time you were in my office, you brought me the picture and you asked me to hang up. That's about 2 weeks ago.
Okay. I mean, I'm just talking in general, just walking in the hall.
Oh, yesterday.
A couple days, we visited in the elevator
Today.
and up, and so that's another conversation.
Yes, sir.
In the last 14 days, I've sent Dr. Wilson 5 emails, 3 just this past week. And so I'm very capable of communicating with administration. That's something I find very easy to do. What I put on the agenda for this last week was a conversation for my fellow commissioners. It wasn't a conversation with Dr. Wilson. Dr. Wilson and I have been talking about animal services for the last 10 years. And so this was a conversation that I wanted to have with my fellow commissioners, because we are the legislators, and legislators legislate. And I was putting a goal out there for us. So last year, we did 36 off-site adoptions. And I asked that we could make it a goal that we do 1 off-site adoption per week, and that's 52. Now, I realize that there's going to be a holiday here and a holiday there, but I'm asking for us. I'm asking each individual commissioner to say, yes, I want to do 52.
Can I have a point of order? Can I
No,
request?
I don't think
Well,
so,
hey,
because
I have a point of order.
Yes.
What is communicating committee reports?
And
'Cause
so
this is
it.
hang on. This is an issue that's already been voted on, is going to animal
Right.
control. You're talking about a specific issue. This is not really what we're talking about as far as communicates and
is.
committee reports. If Donna, tell me what communicates and committee reports are. Would this fall under that? He's talking about a specific issue.
And if that's the issue, I'm gonna talk about.
Commissioner, in the normal meaning of things, it would be things that you all need to communicate to administration, as well as the reports that you all need to give from the committee meetings. This kind of communication has been done in the past, however. I think it's gonna be up to you all to decide what you want to allow under this section of the agenda.
And
Okay.
this
All
is
right,
my
hang on. Wait a second.
communication with my
Wait a
fellow
second.
commissioners.
Wait a second, Matthew.
It's how it goes
You're
down.
getting out of order on this. I mean, we were
think
here.
you're
We
out
were
of
here.
order.
We were here yesterday. We talked about this. I know you weren't here, and I will let you go on for a few more minutes on this issue. But it is going to the Animal Service.
I'd have been
Excuse
finished
me.
if you
Animal
hadn't
Services
interrupted.
and Welfare Committee, in which I'm the chairperson.
Okay.
I have a
I-
point
I
of
don't
order.
Talk about that
I have
later
a point of
too.
order.
Go ahead. I'll let Matthew
Oh,
finish.
Well, let me have a point of order of clarification. If I'm correct, Mr. Parliamentarian and Clerk, I believe communications are privileged, is a privileged motion. Is
Let
a
me go ahead and
privilege-
speak on this since he called me.
Thank you.
If he calls for parliamentarian, I get to talk on this. During the communique, you have 8 minutes to talk about whatever you want to talk
Right.
about. So feel free to
Yeah.
speak your mind.
So he
Thank
can-
you, Mr.
he can-
Parliamentarian.
So I believe under communicate a person, if they want to sit and read the Bible for their 7 minutes, they have the
That's
right.
correct.
I need to start
I'd
there.
like for my 8 minutes to start over.
You can't start over.
Absolutely. I was
this?
interrupted. Why can't I start over?
We messed up the
Mr.
speed.
Parliamentarian, does he get to start over?
No, but I would say that we need to start it back to where you interrupted him.
Okay. Go ahead, Todd. Go
Mr.
ahead, Matthew.
Hopkins, what was that? How much
You have 3
time?
minutes, sir.
Yeah, it's not American Idol. Y'all
Yeah,
start
3
over.
minutes.
You said
So-
if I wouldn't interrupted you,
I know, but
you'd be
that
through
was,
you,
that
but
was
I didn't talk
before
3
you
minutes.
interrupted me. I was going to be quick, but now I'm going to take all 3 minutes. And so what I would just simply like is that for my fellow commissioners, that if you're in favor of something, vote yes, and if you're not in favor of it, vote no. And so if you're in favor of Caddo Parish striving to have 52 off-site adoptions a year, then let's vote yes to do that. And if you're not in favor of us having 52 off-site adoptions a year, vote no. And if it's a funding issue, if we're told we can't do that because we need $20,000 more, that's a completely different issue. Then that's another vote that we would have to take. I'm very comfortable with this going to Animal Services. I'm very comfortable with it coming back to the full body for us all to vote on, because it's a very personal issue per commissioner. And now whether or not it gets carried out is something completely different. But if us as a body, if 7 commissioners say they want something, then we need to be listened to. And that's all I have to say. And so I'm very comfortable with it going to Animal Services, but don't be surprised if it's not back on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
I'll make sure I gave you your.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
And thank you, parliamentarian, for clearing up the confusion.
Okay. Commissioner Bowman?
Nice segue. I just wanted to say that the Animal Services and Welfare Committee will be having a meeting next Thursday, January 25th, 2018, 2 p.m. right here. Thank you. You'll be present, right?
Of course I will.
Be on the committee.
No.
You'll be present.
Thank you for that committee report.
You're welcome, Mr. President.
Commissioner Atkins?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was sorry to see Commissioner Jackson step out because yesterday I felt like he had raised some relevant questions regarding the proposal on the agenda to lease 1.5 acres to a constituent in South Caddo Parish. So I was going to provide some details regarding that request, but you all hopefully can benefit from this information. So just to give you a little background, about a month or so ago, I was contacted by a constituent interested in purchasing a small tract of land referenced in the ordinance yesterday. That constituent owns property on 3 sides of the tract that he's interested in leasing. I contacted Public Works to get their input on the issue. Mr. Glass and Mr. Weaver engaged on the topic, told me that the tract is approximately 1.5 acres in size, is located in the Wallace Lake floodplain, and was purchased by the parish through the FEMA Flood Acquisition Program. As I understand the situation, properties acquired through the Flood Acquisition Program must be taken out of commerce, can't be built upon, and can't be sold. However, apparently they can be leased. The constituent is interested in leasing the property so that he can more easily access and utilize his existing properties without trespassing on parish property. I felt that was a reasonable and honorable request. Frankly, down there in that area, the parish probably wouldn't know if he trespassed on it, but he wanted to be honorable about the situation. So I'd like to see the parish lease the property to the constituent at market rate as market rate is established by the administration. The proposed lease should have a cancellation clause that will allow the parish to terminate the lease with a reasonable notice, just in case the parish needs the property at some point in the future. Again, we're not talking about selling the property. We're talking about leasing the property. It's 1.5 acres. This is going to be a very modest amount of lease payment. So I just caution us against putting too much effort and too much attention to a deal that's really very, very modest in its nature. The parish will be receiving funds, not paying funds. So I think it's important that we keep our due diligence at a scale that properly reflects the scale of the issue being considered. So I hope you all will consider supporting this small request when it comes back on the full agenda. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner Adkins. Commissioner Chavez.
Good job.
Thank you, Chair. First off, long-range planning, we're going to have a meeting next week. Is actually January the 25th at 1 p.m. It's going to be immediately before the animal services. And it's going to be to discuss what Commissioner Jackson needs us to meet on before it comes back to the agenda in February.
That's the banking desert.
Right. You got it. Second, guys, I want to talk, and I'll address the chair instead of pointing out anybody in specific, but how we nominate members for boards. It's concerned me over the last couple of weeks, and I don't feel that we're putting enough emphasis on the best person for the job. And for instance, today Felicia Hamilton was on there, and she was a great candidate, and I don't want her to think that that we picked Alan by any reason that she wasn't good enough, because Alan has been there and has been doing a good job. And I know if we would have prolonged this longer, as far as to vote again on it, we would have been a stale vote again in the future. So I'm glad what happened today happened. I would have liked to gone down to the Police Jury Association too, but I knew I needed to be here to vote on this. But after this vote, after what happened with the ZBA appointment, where I brought a gentleman that was a Fortune 400 member of a company, a manager, had 3 years of urban development, was bilingual, had lived in 4 major cities throughout the United States and in Europe. I obviously thought he was the better person for the job, and he had a resume. And the other guy, it wasn't that he wasn't a good guy. He was a great guy. I don't even know him personally, but he had not even submitted a resume. There was no resume given to us, but we around the Horseshoe picked him. And I feel that all the talk around Shreveport and Caddo Parish is, when is Shreveport going to grow? Why are we so stagnant? Well, I feel it's the time, and I needed to voice my opinion on this. We need to stop picking our friends to be on boards and nominations and appointments, and we need to start picking the best person for the job. And this goes across party lines, because the person that I nominated was a Democrat. He wasn't a Republican. I just thought he was the best person for the job, and he got passed over by somebody else who is obviously a nice guy, but I don't think had the credentials to be on the zoning board of appeals. And I could be wrong in a year. I hope he does a great job, and I wish him the best. But even so, myself, I saw it when it came to parliamentarian. The customary procedures of the commission is we go Democrat, Republican, Democrat every year. It was up for the Republican again, and I was on there. To say that I was the best man for the job was in black and white, because I went to college. I went to a college accredited course and took 6 credit hours to learn parliamentary procedures. And I gave it to all you guys. For a certain person to pick another person and not the best person for the job just falls right into line. And I'm not sour about it by no means. Obviously, I got the position, but when are we going to start getting to the point when we pick the best person for the job? And I feel that it may have to be when we send this to a committee and we actually orchestrate a committee where we can work together to start validating these people and looking at resumes to say, I truly think this will be the best person that we have to offer in Shreveport to run this or that. And I really think, regardless of race, color, creed, party affiliation, who is the best person that we can find, and let's start picking them in these positions. And I hope that going into this new year that we think about that and we say, okay, let's start looking at resumes. Let's just not saying, hey, he or she is a nice guy, because if I owned my company, I wouldn't just pick a friend of mine that's a nice guy to run it. I would want somebody, even if I didn't like the guy, if I knew he could do the job, that's who I'd want to see up there. So it was on my heart that I wanted to say that, guys. So that's it. I hope we go into 2018 picking the best person for the job on these future boards. Thank you, Chair.
Well said.
Okay, Commissioner Lewis Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I appreciate what you're saying, Commissioner Chavez. Yet I do feel that when it comes to selection and choices, that we have to understand that our views might not be the views of others in that respect. And that's really what it boils down to oftentimes. And now, because I view a person one way, that does not mean that everyone is going to view them the same. So even if you talk resumes and things like that, the example that you gave with Mr. Young, he is an excellent candidate.
Absolutely.
He was successful, and that's the process. So I think that we would do ourselves a disservice to have a problem when the process works as it is. And even as related to the particular candidate that you spoke of, who I'm sure is a good guy, but the process is that he comes before the board, every person looks at that person, and they individually vote, and they may or may not view it the same. So I think that's what we're faced with, and that is not to say that one person is not the best person for the job. So with you using that example, I think that both of those would be arguable if you were to look at resumes, but when the process works, when commissioners vote, we have to respect it and support it. And so I think that's what we've done to this point. So that's not to say that he was not a good candidate. I'm sure that he was. But that does not mean that everyone viewed it the exact same way. So I can appreciate what you're saying, and I think we all want the best person. So I agree there. And the only other person I wanted to address respectfully was Commissioner Lynn. We agree with you that we think that the most we can do, if we can do a better job in the area of adoptions, we all agree with that. We all think that's a noble goal for us, and so we support that. I voted against it. What I did not support was the commission making that call, with it being made from the commission without any interaction or any input from the people who do that day to day. So I don't want you to think that your fellow commissioners are opposed to doing a better job in the area of adoptions. I think we all want to do a better job. I think that we all would support that, but maybe I know that I would not support doing it without the respect and the support and the input of the shelter and the administration who's doing a good job in that area. And had we approached them and they were not in support of that, then we would be in lockstep and moving forward to get it done. But I know that they too would like to see the same thing accomplished. So I wanted to address those two concerns. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, Commissioner Lynn?
Yes, I'm up there. I received a copy of the management of the animal shelter and a note from administration saying that this was it. And I've had the opportunity to read it, and it makes me wonder, are there pages missing from what you gave us? Is this everything that they submitted to the parish?
Yes, sir.
So, Dr. Lawrence, everything that you have here, this is all that he sent to you?
You have 9 pages there?
He's, for $25,000, he gave you 9 pages?
Commissioner Lynn, let me say this. It's not the quality, the content, it's not the quantity, it's the content of what you receive. Dr. Lorenz and his team will be here to do an in-person presentation, PowerPoint as to their findings. When you're doing research, particularly when I did my research, I have boxes of material that never even made it into my dissertation. So I'm not going to second guess these men. They'll be here to talk for themselves next Thursday. And I would say if you have any additional questions or concern about the length of it, the breadth of it, you can talk to them in person and they will give you their perspective on it.
And so they'll be here next Thursday?
Yes, sir.
At the Animal Services meeting?
Yes, sir, at 2 o'clock.
That's what the main purpose of it is, Commissioner Lynn.
It would have been here this week, but because of inclement weather conditions,
Yep, I
we
knew
couldn't
that.
be here.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. President.
And Commissioner Bowman?
Okay, thank you. I just want to briefly say to Commissioner Chavez, I concur with what you pontificated and alliterated in regards to how voting takes place and how we should do. That's how I felt, and I say since I've been here that we should do more of, and I think all of us, including myself, I would be a hypocrite if I say I have not been guilty of that. At the same time, that's not my mantra. I don't see color, I don't see race, I don't see party lines. My mother didn't rear me that way, and I try not to, allow my votes to show that way. I vote for what sometimes my vote isn't my vote. It may be the vote in which the citizens put me here to do, and constituents. And that's who we ultimately have to reflect and represent when certain issues come about, And just like with parliamentarian, although you may have seen my vote for Stormy, she mentioned it. It doesn't mean that she was any less than. It doesn't mean that. I think, Mario, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, and I told you this, you can be president, you can be vice president, you can be anything, and you'll probably go on and be a state rep and anything else beyond this state in the future. You're that great of a person, and you've served honorably already. So that's something I and a whole bunch of other people besides Commissioner Middleton can even say that they've even done. So that you get respect on. The main thing is sometimes that's how that goes, but with me, it's never about that. It's never about race. It'll never be about any political party and things of that nature. My vote's for the human race, and sometimes I have to vote with what constituents, say. And ultimately, I'm not here in any cliques. I don't click with anybody, but I love everyone up here. And I just hope the same respect is given that you're requesting, that you remember to do that as well. And that's all. Thank you, Mr. President.
I'd like to say a couple things. First of all, Commissioner Jackson, you left, and Commissioner Adkins was answering some of your questions. So concerning that ordinance on the FEMA lease, so maybe he can share some insight with you after the meeting. Number two, I agree wholeheartedly that we're always supposed to try to pick the best person. I hope it doesn't, we don't cloud the issue that when we have a appointment in, say for example, the sewer district that I had on here today, that, everybody should continue to listen to the person's district that is, or in the fire district. The ones that we seem to have is the ZBA, the Metropolitan Planning Commission, or something that's parish-wide. And remember, I was saying some of the same stuff that Commissioner Bowman was just saying, that, and Commissioner Lewis Johnson, I said this the other day, that we have a very diverse body. I mean, you can look up here, we have 6 Republicans, 6 Democrats, we have 6 African Americans, we have 5 white males, and a Hispanic, which I think you're the first Hispanic
Latino.
that I know that's been elected.
Latino.
Okay, all right, Latino. To be elected, and 1 female. And we're going to have different views and different ideas. Commissioner Johnson, I get along, Linda Johnson, and Commissioner Lewis. I was going to say I get along with Commissioner Lyndon Johnson, but I get along with you too. But sometimes we differ. I mean, he has different ideas and thinks different and just votes different. And he may very well have thought that the other lady was the best person for the job. And I respect that position, and hopefully we can move forward with all these issues. So look forward to working with y'all. Let's continue to communicate with our administration and our staff, and I will turn it over to Commissioner Jackson.
I did get a chance to hear some of Commissioner Atkins' response, and I tuned in on the tail end of it as well. And I want to address Commissioner Chavez. I say that's been addressed part. I agree. Things should not be about, we should be about picking the best person and what's best, not only for who's the best candidate, but what's best for Caddo Parish. And the two kind of go hand in hand. Yes, there are differences up here, but as I said last year and the year before is, what's big to you may not be big to me. What's big to me may not be big to you. But it is not our roles individually or politically to reduce them to such minuscule issues or to blow them up to be something big. That's why my issue was about, you heard me say, the process. And so I want to make sure that the process in which if somebody brings something up here, I never go out and look for issues to be opposed or to be against it, or to wait for somebody to send me an email that's not even on this body. That's what we have gotten to, and it's showing. It's starting to show. I pick up the phone, I call people, I text people, I email people on this body to build consensus. I could have voted for Commissioner Gay's watch to be parliamentarian. That was the politically expedient thing for me to do. But I did what I felt was the right thing. And I implore you and the person who got up and left to do the same thing, and all of us to do the same thing. Vote on issues based on the substance and the priority of things. We take such little issues and blow them totally out of proportion. Such little issues. If you disagree, just vote no. State your position and vote no. But what I don't do is, if somebody calls me and I disagree with something, I don't pick up the phone and call Commissioner Lewis Johnson and say, hey, you should oppose that because I oppose it. And that is what is starting to happen. And to pull me to the side and say that is not, is a lie. That is what is happening. Some of these things that we are discussing are small issues, very small. We're not going to agree on everything. But what we should not do, and what I continue to pray, is that we vote on issues and move on down the road. We're not going to agree on them all. There's just no way for us to be in sync. I was only on one board where the whole board voted unanimous on everything. And we see the state of higher education right now, because they were just stamping everything the governor went and proposed for them. But we have to be consistent about everything across the board with this body. And I think we're starting to look in the mirrors now and see some of the inconsistencies that we have. My issue is about the process, not how small of an issue it may be, because that banking task force thing is so small, I don't even know what we're gonna have to discuss in the committee meeting next week, because the issues there are so small. But we've blown it up like I'm asking for us to take over the banks here. And that's not what I'm asking us to do. It's about the process. And I think when we get back to the process, the merits, and the substance of things, then we'll be able to move on forward with a lot of these smaller issues that we have in front of us without the wrangling. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hopkins. President's report. Just a couple things. I wanted to be sure to mention it. We'll get out of here. We did have a human trafficking summit last week at the juvenile court. Again, I would like to thank all the commissioners and the juvenile, Clay and his staff, that were part of that. And I especially wanted to thank Commissioner Stormy Gage Watts, who was able to step in my stead to present the proclamation, and also Commissioner Chavez and Commissioner Middleton, who made that human trafficking summit. Again, I would just reiterate that I would like to thank the Dr. Wilson, his staff, the Public Works Department, and everybody who worked on behalf of the storm and the situation to make sure the parish roads and streets were clear.
Welcome back, Commissioner
Everybody
Mills.
was able to get to work today, and the ones that did work, everything seemed to be fine. I don't think any of the parish roads or streets were closed down during the inclement weather, but everybody worked hard to address that situation. So that's the president's report, and I'll move over to Commissioner Hopkins. Next item.
Hey, President,
Hang on one second. Dr. Wilson?
Yeah, forgot to push the button on there on speaking, but I just want to remind everybody, the Employee Recognition Program will be next Friday. And this is where we recognize the tenure of employees serving 5, 10, 15, 20 years of service. So it'll be at the Agriculture's building at the fairgrounds next Friday afternoon.
What if I feel like I've been here for 20 years?
You come on, we recognize that too. We recognize any feelings you may have, okay? We have an aspirin and some water. Okay, also, Commissioners, I just want to make one comment about the feasibility study. I didn't write it. It's just like calling a plumber to your house and he put in a dollar part, but he charges you $300. And you look at him and say, what's the deal here? The part costs $1 and you charging me $300? $2.99 was for the knowledge that they bring to the table. That's why you called them in the first place.
Right.
All right. So there'll be questions we can ask the crew team next week. There are 4 PhDs that were on this. They look at a lot of things. Of course, they didn't put everything in the report because it wouldn't interest you if they put it in there. So we'll get a chance to talk to them one-on-one to see what they were thinking about and why didn't they look at other places as opposed to this Louisiana.
Thank you, Dr.
2
Wilson.
o'clock.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. 2 o'clock next Thursday.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Wait a second, do we have any?
No, we have no citizen
We don't have no
comments.
citizen comments. Commissioner Jackson, make a motion to adjourn. So done.
I'm in the wrong business.
They have the best relationship. They have a love-hate relationship.